Hello and thank you for joining us. The editor-in-chief of The Atlantic says President Trump's top national security officials accidentally included him on a text chain discussing classified war plans. The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg says he received an invite to join a group chat on the messaging app Signal, where officials were debating plans to attack Houthi rebels in Yemen. The chat included Vice President J.D. Vance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other cabinet-level officials, according to the report. A National Security Council spokesman says, quote, the message thread that was reported appears to be authentic, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain. At the White House Monday, President Trump was asked for his reaction to the report, which seemed to take him by surprise.
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who just arrived in Hawaii Monday to kick off his first Indo-Pacific trip, had this to say about the report.
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us now. Olivia, what do we know about the sensitive information divulged in this group chat?
Well, Lindsay, what an extraordinary report there from Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic about this group chat in Signal that he was a part of that included not only him, but also the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Advisor talking in real time about the potential strikes that they're going to take in Yemen against Houthi rebels. Not only were they discussing, at length the target themselves, but also talking about the timeline, whether or not they should delay them for another month. We also saw in this group chat and some of the details of it that were published by Jeffrey Goldberg, essentially a debate going on between the Vice President and the Secretary of Defense about delaying these strikes for another month to allow for Europe to perhaps take a better or more advanced role in their own security in the region. Vice President J.D. Vance noted that Europe has about 40% of their trade go through the Suez Canal, whereas the U.S. only has 3%, and therefore it would be incumbent upon them to take more of a step in negotiations and in these national security strikes against the Houthi rebels. Some of these texts were even published as a part of this article. We also know that as a part of these discussions that Jeffrey Goldberg had witnessed in this article, they also talked about targets, the weapons they were using, and the attack sequencing. Now, these are things you obviously do not want to get out before you conduct any airstrikes against any, people who are not allies of the United States, but it's quite notable that he was in this group chat commercial application Signal where they were having these sorts of discussions.
I want to ask you about that in a second, but what's the latest we're hearing from the White House about this?
Well, we are just hearing from the White House now from Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary of the White House, where she said that they still have full confidence in Trump's national security team. And that also includes National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who was the individual who actually asked Goldberg to join the chat, perhaps unbeknownst to them that this was a journalist and not someone within the national security apparatus that they wanted in this group chat. Trump there, you heard a little bit earlier, saying he was not aware of the Atlantic article. And he went on to say after that that the leak couldn't have been very effective because the attack was effective. Then he also admonished the Atlantic by saying they're going out of business and they're not much of a magazine. All of this to say, though, that this is still, if unintentional, a very, very big breach of security.
What are the bigger implications of this, especially with sensitive conversations taking place outside of normal channels, right, Olivia?
Well, there's certainly conversations to be had about the discussion of how classified information is handled in this government. And that's been a conversation that's been ongoing, not only under this administration, but the previous administration and during Trump's own administration, his first administration. So there's certainly a conversation about that and the handling of classified materials that has been ongoing. I suspect that more conversations will be raised specifically as a result of this particular leak. But really, next steps as far as what could be done specifically about this. Look, Trump has said he still has full confidence in his national security team, including Waltz, But there's also Congress. Congressional Republicans could launch any sort of investigation into how this happened and how much information beyond just war plans are being shared on a commercial messaging app like Signal. By all means, it doesn't seem like that's something they're willing to do right now. We've heard from several congressional Republicans throughout the day who expressed surprise, but not exactly a mobilization effort to really do anything to reprimand the people who were involved in this specifically. So as of right now, it just seems like this is a story that's going to keep ricocheting around Washington. We'll have to see if there's actually any impact that will happen to the national security apparatus, but also to Trump's national security team as a result.
And we will have more congressional reaction from our Nicole Kelly later in the show. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you.